I guess we're going to do this part then. We'll do the urinalysis on Thursday then. All right, gather around.
I really hope it doesn't come over here.
Yeah, that does smell a little funky, doesn't it?
Yeah, like something's rotten in there for sure.
Okay. All right, so what's the primary organ of your urinary system, guys?
Your bladder.
The primary organ would be the kidney,
Oh.
right? And we'll also talk about the bladder and a little. Okay, so the kidney is basically a giant filtration system, right? So for example, so what's the Greek word for filter? Do we know what the Greek word for filter is?
Kid, no.
HEPA. HEPA. H-E-P-A.
Like a HEPA filter?
Which is why, yeah, HEPA filter. So HEPA actually is an acronym for something, but it's one of those like, yeah, it's double. Well, not a double entendre. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, so it's basically a redundancy, right? So,
Oh, I've been smelling it.
So the Greek word for HEPA or for filter is HEPA, right? Which is why, for example, if something were wrong with your kidney or with your liver, you have hepatitis, right? Right. So that's where it comes from. It's from filter. Okay. Your kidneys are basically the filtration system for your blood. Okay. So blood will come in through the renal artery, okay, and then it'll go through what's called the arcuate, and then interlobar and interlobular arteries. Okay. And then it will get to this thing, which is called the nephron. Okay. So the nephron is the functional unit of your kidneys. Here, let me. Yeah, that does smell good.
It's like creeping towards us.
Is it that? Maybe I'm barely not close enough.
That's from the fridge.
Oh.
I thought you just said, is it bad? I'm like, how do you not smell that?
No, I smell it. But I was just saying if it was bad.
Can we have class outside?
Sorry about that, guys.
Wasn't a joke.
Okay, so here you get a decent picture here. Okay, so blood is going to come in. So we've got so this is called the interlobular artery right here. Okay, and then you're going to go into this thing which is called the nephron. The nephron's the functional unit of the kidney. Okay, you've got literally thousands of these. So we got two layers to our kidney here. Okay, so we've got the middle, like the inner area, which is called the medulla. Okay, and then we got the cortex. Inside the cortex is where the actual filtration from the nephrons is actually happening. So here inside of the cortex, there's literally thousands of nephrons per kidney. Okay, so each nephron is going to be this. So first thing we got here, this is called the glomerulus. Glomerulus comes from the Latin word for ball of yarn, because it kind of looked like, to early anatomists, like a ball of yarn. Blood pressure here is extremely high. Okay, and it's covered in these things called podocytes. So podocytes means little feet. Okay. So it's like, anybody ever used cheesecloth before? Right, so it's kind of like cheesecloth, okay? So this mesh screen prevents all the big stuff from getting out. So like red blood cells, white blood cells, albumin, things like that from getting through, but everything else gets out. So that fridge is pretty nasty, right? Like something stinky in your fridge, right? You gotta clean out your fridge, right? You're not just gonna, like, let's say you spilled something in your fridge, right? You're not just gonna wipe up the area. What are you gonna do? You're gonna take everything out of the fridge, throw away like the expired ketchup bottle, right? Throw away everything that's expired, and then put everything back. That's what your blood, your kidneys do, right? So first, we filtrate out everything that can be filtrated out, okay? So everything gets pushed out of the mesh screen. So you got the glomerulus, and this thing's called the Bowman capsule, okay? You're then gonna go through, this is called the PCT, proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal means what, guys? Close. Convoluted would mean what? Twisty, turny, complicated, right? That's the terms. So it's going to go through the PCT, then it's going to go down the descending loop of Henle, the ascending loop of Henle, the DCT, distal convoluted tubule, and then the collecting duct. Okay. So in the PCT, the loop of Henle, and the DCT, we're going to selectively reabsorb everything that needs to be reabsorbed. What's going to dictate what gets reabsorbed, how much gets reabsorbed, and all of those areas. What's going to dictate that? So, like, for example, what's going to dictate how much sodium my kidneys reabsorb? Well, chemical, right? So what if I already have a lot of sodium in my system? right? I'm not going to reabsorb it. What if I don't have a lot of sodium in my system? So what you reabsorb, how much you reabsorb is going to fluctuate moment to moment, hour to hour, day by day, based off of what you already have, okay? So first, everything is going to get filtrated out, and then we're going to selectively reabsorb stuff through the PCT, the Lupa-Henle, and the DCT, okay? Once we've done all that, we then go to the collecting duct. Once you get to the collecting duct, absorption is done. You're now trying to get the water balance right? And then, so everything that's in here is filtrate that's going to be excreted out. Right? At this point, we basically call it urine. The only thing you can really excrete at this point is water, and that's in the presence of a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, which we talked about. Okay? So that's what's going on there. Okay? So, blood comes in through, right? So we have the afferent and efferent arterial. Let me show you another one that's got a better, the afferent and the efferent.
I want to go nose blind so badly right now.
Yeah, it's a little mess. Okay? So coming through the afferent arterial, right, then it'll go through the glomerulus, and then the blood will come out through the efferent arterial. Okay? So filtrate is collected into the collecting ducts. Okay? So we've got our renal medulla, right, and then we got our renal cortex. These are called the renal pyramids. They're roughly triangular shaped, and then these are called the renal columns. Okay, so you've got thousands of nephrons in here. Each of them are going to collect filtrate in the collecting duct. The collecting ducts are then going to drain into several minor calyces, and then the several minor calyces are going to drain into 2 or 3 major calyces. The major calyces are going to dump into this thing right here. It's called the renal pelvis, right? And then that's going to drain into the left and right ureter. The left and right ureter are primarily made out of transitional epithelial tissue, which we talked about way back at the beginning of this semester. Do you guys remember what's unique about transitional epithelial tissue, which is only found in the urinary system? Transitional epithelial tissue is able to expand and contract. So before we came up with like things like gourds, or before we came up with like plastics and things like that, what was the most common way to store water?
Sheep's bladder.
Sheep's bladder, camel's bladder, things like that, right? Because it was able to expand and hold a decent amount of water, okay? So your ureters and your bladder and your urethra are basically made out of the same material, right? So filtrate collects in the collecting duct, goes down into the minor calyces, major calyces, renal pelvis, into the ureter. Your left and your right ureter drain into the bladder. Your bladder is, when it's empty, is roughly triangular shaped, and then as it distends, it kind of becomes pear-shaped, okay? At the bottom of your bladder, there's a thing called the trigone. The trigone measures distension and pressure, right? And inside of your bladder is also a muscle called the detrusor muscle. The detrusor muscle, it's a smooth muscle. What do we know about muscles? Muscles can be stretched, right? And the more they get stretched, the more they want to rebound, right? So the average bladder can hold close to a liter of fluid. Starting about the 500 milliliter mark, that's about when you're like, okay, like, I need, right, if they're on a road trip, you're like, hey, you know, the next, you know, gas station we see, or, you know, rest area, let's stop, right? You get to about 750, 800 milliliters, like, you need to stop, like, right now, right? You get to about 1,000, you're like, I really gotta go right now, okay? You've got 2 sphincters, so you got your urethra, okay? So in the female reproductive system, or in the female urogenital system, the urethra is very short, it's only a couple centimeters long. Its sole function is to evacuate urine. In the male reproductive and urogenital system, it is a 2-way highway, right? So it's both for the expulsion of urine and also a pathway for the delivering of sperm and semen. Okay, so it's got a dual pathway. Okay, you got 2 sphincters inside of your urethra. The internal ones, just like what we talked about with the rectum and the anus, the internal sphincter is involuntary. Once the bladder becomes sufficiently distended, the internal sphincter relaxes, right, and that's when the urge to urinate becomes like, I gotta pee, like you're struggling to hold it in at that point. And then the external sphincter is voluntary, but right, you get to a point where your bladder gets too distended, eventually, right, you've got an area in the brain that will override your ability to hold on to it, and then, right, you end up peeing your pants on the road trip. Okay? So there's only so much your body can do. Okay? So, medulla, cortex, pyramids, and arcuate arteries, columns, okay? Nephron, which includes the glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, PCT, DCT, collecting duct, and then these are called the peritubular capillaries. The peritubular capillaries is where the actual reabsorption happens, right? So initially we filtrate out everything: sugar, amino acids, sodium, potassium, calcium, whatever, and then we selectively reabsorb most of it. What doesn't get reabsorbed goes from the PCT into the collecting duct. From the collecting duct, it goes down the renal pyramids to the minor calyces, from the minor calyces to the major calyces, from the major calyces to the renal pelvis, to the ureters, to the bladder, and then from the bladder to the urethra, and then it's expelled through the body through a process that we call in medicine micturition, instead of urination. Who are the people that you go see for problems with your urinary system?
Urologist.
So if you're a man, you can go see a urologist. If you're a woman, you can also see a urologist, or you can also go see your OBGYN. So most OBGYNs also will take care of urinary tract issues for women as well too. Cool. All right. I will let them know that there is something rotten in the state of Denmark. Hopefully they can take care of that between now and our Thursday session.
So this is what our quiz is on next week?
This and then the urinalysis. So
Okay.
the urinalysis is going to be pretty cool.